So we're in your culinary class, and now we're in chapter 2, section 4. And we're going to be talking about using a recipe. So let's go over some of these tips and techniques. Common mixing terms. So what does it mean to beat? To beat is to quickly and smoothly combine ingredients. It usually implies the use of an electric mixer, but can be performed with a mixing spoon, fork, or whisk. Beating is the quickest and most aggressive way to combine ingredients, to beat them. Electric beater, mixer is like, when I say beat, is to mix them with a mixer is when I think of it. Mix is to thoroughly combine 2 or more ingredients. To stir is to combine ingredients usually with a spoon. Compared to beating and mixing, stirring is the gentlest way to combine ingredients. So, see the difference there. So, here we go. We're going to talk about using a recipe. So, first of all, it's important that a recipe be well written. So that means it has the ingredients and the amounts in order, and they have to be in order so you know, okay, this is the ingredients. We're going to use this ingredient first and this next ingredient next. And the directions need to be very clear and not confusing. So, and it also should have a recommendation for the sizes, even for the pots or the pans or utensils. What kind of utensils do we need to use for this recipe? The temperature and times are very important too, especially if it's been put in the oven, you know, so the temperatures and times, otherwise we don't know how long to cook it. And the characteristics of doneness, to see how it's done. Is it brown, or is it flaky, or is it crisp? These are good words. And also, what does it yield? What is the yield of it? Yield means, is it going to give you 6 slices? Is it going to serve 6 people? You're going to have enough for 6 people? Is it going to be 8 cups? Or is it going to be 8 1-cup servings, you know? So what, to be very clear on the sizes, the yield, the sizes of the servings in the recipe. So it's good to have a well-written recipe so we know, you know, when we get done, whether we have enough to serve our family or whoever we're serving. Preparation. Be sure to read it very carefully before starting and look up any unfamiliar terms. You know, make sure you have an adequate supply. So you have a recipe and then you start up and you realize you're missing ingredients. Not too good. So read it over first. And then a lot of times we can adjust the yield. We adjust the yields. We have, say we need to double the recipe, or maybe we need to cut the recipe in half. Can we really do that on that recipe? So it must be very proportional. If we divide it in half, it must be exact. If we double it, it must be exact too. So we have to make sure that we're figuring right. So, in fact, you may require a different pan if you double it, right? Or you may have to adjust, you know, the temperature even. So you should look into it, and sometimes it's better. The best recipe was probably the recipe that it was made for. But if you have to double it or you have to half them, then you may want to try to investigate first. If not, you know, you may try and see how it goes. Most of the time it will go pretty good. So measuring, let's talk about measuring here. Measuring, converting measurements. So here we have, this little article kind of is pretty good about converting measurements, but it says the United States customary system is the metric system. So, and the U.S. customary circle, the 3 most common systems are the United States customary system, the imperial system, and the metric system. 3 different, okay? And the United States customary system and the imperial system use the same units, such as cups, gallons, ounces, pounds, you know, so they use. The metric system, though, is different because the metric system is in grams or liters. So usually grams and liters, you have to find the equivalent if you're going to go from cups, you know, and on to, you know, whether you're going into ounces, and ounces or grams, you know. And the metric system, it says right here, is one of the most important benefits to using the metric system is that most measurements are listed by weight, measuring measurements more precise. So they go by grams, which they think weight is easier than volume and actually more accurate than measuring volume. So some other factors that may be considered when converting a recipe are temperature, Celsius. Are we going to use the Celsius? Or we're going to use Fahrenheit? So most of our, in America, our recipes go by Fahrenheit, although there are some Celsius scales these days. The size of the pan could be centimeters, inches, liters, or quarts. So it's pretty important that you could know what measurements you're using. So conversion charts help to convert systems of measurement. And in your book, you'll have conversion charts on this. So that's to know. We have a couple different systems. We have the metric system, and then we have the customary system. So those two mainly. So let's see here. Measuring. Let's talk about measuring. This picture here with the picture here, you see how she's looking very happily cooking there. Measuring. Use the correct equipment for measuring because accurate measurements are vital to the success of the recipe. Investigate a quality set of measuring cups and spoons. Have the right cups and spoons. There's different types. There's three types of liquid or measuring cups, I should say. So there's liquid measuring cups, and there's dry measuring cups, and there are measuring spoons. So let's talk about the liquid measuring cups. Liquid measuring cups should only be used as liquids. They're usually transparent, usually glass, sometimes not glass, but they come in glass. They have a pouring spout on them in the front, and they're the kind you set flat on the surface, and then you look down with your eyes level to see where it's measuring in that measuring cup. So measure only liquids in this cup. So if you're going to measure sticky liquids here, like if you were going to put honey in it, it says do not dip the measuring cup into the honey or the liquid, right? So and do not over measure. Remove it with a spatula and put it in. So otherwise it will. You never dip, as you're going to basically put it in. So those are sticky liquids. On to dry measuring cups. So dry measuring cups are 1/8 to 1 cup. Usually they're small, right? So they only measure from 1/8 to 1 cup. And they must be with dry ingredients. And basically you heap the ingredients in, the dry ingredients in, and level it out so that you can see. Things like flour. It used to be that flour, you'd have to sift flour before you could use flour, but now we have flour that does not need to be sifted. And basically you tap the flour down or pack as you put it in, as you pack, but don't, now it doesn't need to be sifted. It used to be it needed to be sifted, otherwise it would measure wrong. So let's see. It says flour, spoon it by tablespoons into a dry measuring cup until it's heaping. Do not shake or tap the cup because doing this will cause the flour to settle, resulting in inaccurate measurements. Level off the excess with a straight edge, and unless specified in a recipe, most flour does not to be sifted, okay? Both granulated sugar and confectured sugar are measured using the same basic technique. Fill the measuring cup the same way. But sometimes brown sugar, you take brown sugar, it gets really lumpy. It's very important to get rid of the lumps before you measure the brown sugar. So brown sugar should be packed into a dry measuring cup and then leveled with a straight edge. And if it's lumpy, use a spoon to press out those lumps. Shortening and peanut butter, they must be packed into a dry measuring cup where there's no air pockets in to measure, and level it off as you pack it down into that dry measuring cup. So what about measuring spoons? Measuring spoons usually can be used for either dry or liquids, and they're usually less than 1/4 of a cup. And you can heap the measuring spoons and then level them off. You know, level them off. Don't just like keep them full and let them sit on top and full, but make sure they're leveled off. Dip a clean, dry spoon and fill it up and level it off. That's what they say here. So containers of baking powder, baking soda, and spices should be gently stirred to break up any lumps. So here's some pictures as they're doing it. Here, that picture is of a liquid measuring cup that we talked about. Right here is a picture of it. That one's a plastic one, so you can see how you would use that for liquids. So tips and techniques, and we'll finish up with this. This will finish up the whole chapter. Tips and techniques, common measurements here. Let's see. Tablespoon. 1 tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons. Pretty important to know. 1 cup equals 16 tablespoons or 8 ounces. I always think 8 ounces when I'm going to get a cup, drink a cup of stuff, it's 8 ounces. 1 pint is 2 cups and it's 16 ounces. So just remember that. These are pretty common, like 16 ounces. Like even Papa asked me, you know, how many ounces are in a pint? I said 16 ounces. So a quart is 2 pints. So it has 4 cups in it and 32 ounces. You just, each one of these, like it has, 1 quart has 2 pints. So you times this by 2 anyway. A half a gallon is 2 quarts and it has 8 cups. Cups are 64 ounces. 1 gallon, that's a half a gallon. A 1 gallon though is 4 quarts. 16 cups are 128 ounces. So you can use this for common measures. Whenever they say you have a dash of salt is about 1/8 of a teaspoon. A pinch of salt is 1/16 of a teaspoon, and a smidgen is 1/32 of a teaspoon. So, and here are some abbreviations. The abbreviations for cup is C, degree, you see the little degree mark. Dozen, D-O-Z, gallon, G-A-L, hour, H-hour, inch, minute, M-I-N, ounce is O-Z, pint, P-T, pound is L-B or the number, it's a pound number on the keyboard. A quart, you have Q-T, second, S-E-C, teaspoon, or a teaspoon is a small T, or teaspoon, T-S-P, or a tablespoon is a large T, or a tablespoon. So just to know these in a recipe is very important so you don't make mistakes. So that's about it for now.